drain. It started in the late 20th century when young men left school at a young age. These boys then sought work in the construction industry as it was seen as a good way to make money quickly. However, the economy soon collapsed, and these now young men were forced into unemployment and finally realised the importance of a third level qualification. So what did they do? Some went back to school to acquire new skills. This was known as reskilling. Few gained jobs from this in such sectors as the IT. Others went back working in tertiary sectors, doing such jobs as farming and fishing, while most, they emigrated abroad. When did these people start to emigrate? It was in late 2007 when the first signs of the recession hit, and this forced people to move abroad. Since then, 200,000 people have left. 62% of these people are between the age of 25 and 34 and have a third level degree, which is a huge loss to our country as their expertise is what is needed to restore this country to a fit state. However, this may be hard to do so when 10,700 two-year working visas have been made available in 2014 to such countries such as Canada, Australia and the UK. How can we stop this brain drain? Well, we can employ local, give the people an incentive to stay. Create events such as The Gathering, which was a hugely successful event as it attracted 1 million people home to their country. And we could also offer reduced college fees. This would make education available to a wider range of people, which would make our people more employable. Our future expectation of house prices. The outlook is extremely bright. Recent statistics show that house prices in Ireland rose by 1.4% in North Dublin and by 12.7% in South Dublin, and by 5 to 7% in Ireland as a whole. With improvements like this, we won't be long reaching the house prices of 2008. But what does this bright outlook mean for our country? People can now have the confidence to invest in property. Jobs once again will be created in the construction and real estate sector, which may enable some of our children to return home to their chosen profession. Most importantly, however, the government will have other means of receiving taxes which will enable them to improve public services and which will relieve pressure off the existing taxpayers. Thanks.
The housing crisis had a massive effect on the construction industry. The construction industry really started to boom and kick in 2002 and 2003. With 60,000 houses being built in 2002, employment in this sector was increasing. Many unskilled workers could work for a very good wage. Many students dropped out of school to begin apprentices. The start of this boom in the construction of houses led to many other industries booming, such as van sales and TV sales. After many years of the construction industry booming, it reached its peak in 2007. In this year, 78,207 houses were built, and employment reached its all-time high with 210,000 employed in the sector. In late 2007-2008, there was a world financial crisis with many major banks going under, the worst crisis since the Great Depression. Many construction workers became unemployed, with 152,000 in 2008. Many large and small construction businesses went into voluntary liquidation. In 2008, there was 47,500 related construction businesses. However, in 2011, only 20,000 of these businesses remained. The massive debts of developers from building large developments and then being unable to pay back loans led to the formation of NAMA. NAMA took control of unfinished developments like estates, which leads me on to my next number of slides. The housing crisis had an extremely negative effect on many estates in Ireland. Some estates were half finished and others only had a few houses built. These estates are now known as ghost estates. A study carried out in 2010 by the Department of Environment found that there are 2,846 ghost estates in Ireland. 23,000 of these houses in these ghost estates are finished but unoccupied, and 20,000 of these houses are still at various stages of completion. County Cork is the worst affected county in Munster, with 178 ghost estates. Worst affected among Ireland is Carlow, Leitrim, Roscommon, Sligo and Longford. There are many problems and dangers associated with ghost estates. Many estates are almost finished and only have a couple of houses left, which is quite an eyesore. In some extreme cases, there has been rats crawling up pipes into family homes, from uncovered pipes in unfinished houses in the same estate. These estates are extremely dangerous. Many young children have become injured by walking into these ghost estates. In one such case, a 2-year-old boy drowned in a pool of water in February 2012 on a ghost estate in Westmeath. The question is, what has happened with many of these ghost estates? Well, Minister for Housing Jan O'Sullivan said 40 of the worst ghost estates will be bulldozed in 2014. Some ghost estates are being sold by Namur for extremely low prices. A ghost estate in County Carlow went at a reserve price of $13,000 per home, or $260,000 for all 20 properties. The future for these unfinished housing estates is improving, with 1,770 of them in 2012, and now in 2013 there is fewer than 1,300 ghost estates in Ireland.
During the Celtic Tiger, the general consensus for many people was that the good times would never end. There were a few people, however, who foresaw the property bubble bursting, the decrease in demand for housing, and the subsequent end of the Celtic Tiger. One such person was William Starry, who is today CEO of State Street Ireland, and once was deputy head of banking supervision in the Central Bank of Ireland. In February 2000, he wrote an article for Finance Dublin where he predicted a property price fall of as high as 50% could happen if credit growth was not curbed. He said, "At some time in the next few years, we are likely to see the beginning of what will be a significant decline in property prices, including, in particular, residential property. The main reason for such a decline will relate to the size of the current rate of growth and borrowing, which is, of course, supporting the existing level of asset prices." Another forewarner of the property crash was the International Monetary Fund. In 2003, it published a study stating that residential property in Ireland was overvalued. The assessment by IMF directors accompanying the study warned that a sharp rise in unemployment could pose risk to the housing market and the financial sector. Fine Gael's Richard Bruton said at the time that the report was a timely warning to the government of the dangers that lie ahead and the need to bring down inflation and improve public sector productivity. However, Brendan Howlin of the Labour Party said the IMF report was predictably conservative. Perhaps the most famous case of forewarning the crash was by economist, writer, broadcaster and journalist David McWilliams. In 2003 on RT1, he argued that the housing boom was nothing but a confidence trick foisted on the Irish people by an unholy alliance of bankers, landowners and a pliant political class, which would collapse, resulting in a generation in negative equity. In response to such predictions of economic collapse, then Taoiseach Bertie Ahern famously said in a speech to the Irish Congress of Trade Unions Conference 2007 that the people behind such predictions would commit suicide.
In this extract, planning permission for housing will be discussed. In the beginning of the millennium and early 2000s, due to research, we realised that we hadn't got enough houses to meet the demand that was taken in the late 1900s, say 97, 98, 99. There was research took and we realised we had not enough houses to meet the demand. So because of this, planning permission was absolutely lashed out left, right and centre so that houses would be able to build to meet the demand. But they didn't foresee that this would lead to an oversupply in the following years, coming into, say, the late 2000s, but we'll get on to that. Planning permission was granted for absolutely stupid reasons, like building housing estates and shopping centres flying up everywhere in rural areas, places that people were content enough with the way things was going in those areas. They didn't really need housing estates or they didn't need big shopping centres. And the regular checks obviously weren't being kept on the passing of the planning permission. And there was certain boys, like businessmen, saw this as a window of opportunity to make more money than they already had by seeking planning permission, getting it granted, building housing estates and selling each individual house on for probably double of what it's worth and making a nice wealthy return on their investment, paying off the loan and still ending up quite wealthy. This was all done in the name of greed. However, the lads didn't realise that a fall in demand would follow this chaotic madness, because sustainability for what was going on, realistically, when we reflect on it, was impossible. It got to the stage where supply outweighed demand, and the supply for housing, the whole housing market at this moment in time, this was about 2005, 2006, the boom was just coming to an end. 2007, we're in here now. And a fall of demand just followed, and the whole housing estate was probably unconsciously preparing itself for probably the most globally chaotic crash in the history books of all time.